What's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic this week. I'm here today with Darren from Tree Amigos down in Carlsbad, New Mexico. Yes, the cavern Carlsbad of New Mexico. You hear that right. So thank you, Darren, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course, man. And, it's a pleasure having you on. And I always like having people, from like the eastern part of New Mexico, because we don't hear much from the eastern guys. I had one on a couple weeks ago from Hobbs, but, it's great to hear from different, people from that side of the state, because it's so different, too, compared to, where I'm at, too. Sunland Park's over there. That's just a different beast on its own. So it's really cool to get your guys' perspective, too, what's going on. So appreciate you joining us today. But before I give you an intro, just let you guys know we're going to be talking about him, of course, his business and everything, and then we're going to jump down and give you guys a quick DEA hearing update and what could possibly come from that, as well as an update on what Mexico is up to. If you guys don't know, years ago, and I'd cover this, their Supreme Court had ruled that cannabis being illegal was against their constitution. So there's been some updates on that and some stuff that's going on. So we'll talk about that. Without further ado, Darren, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Darren. I'm from here in Carlsbad. I'm the owner of Tree Amigos Cannabis. We're a dispensary, and we have a pre-roll brand also.
Oh, nice. Okay. What's the name of that brand, if you don't mind me asking?
Rollies.
I like it. I think I saw, I looked on your Instagram and everything. It's a little roly-poly, ain't it?
Yeah, that's one of our products. It's the roly-poly is a little half-gram rosin-infused pre-roll.
Okay. Nice. So you guys, different specialties. We'll get into more of that too, of course. But again, thank you for joining me, and we'll get into the episode now. So before we get into the business and everything, I really want to let's go back in time. When did, your cannabis support or use really just start, in your life?
Yeah, sure. So it was back in high school, like late 90s is when I began my relationship with the plant. Just started using it and sharing it back then, and I've been with it ever since.
Nice. So it's been something that's part of most of your life, like a lot of us.
Yeah, for sure. Big part of my life.
Yeah. And like most people I know, like I tried it when I was 14 and was smoking it back then and got in trouble and did it for years. But, it started when I was a teenager, like, so many other of us. Now, these days, should kids do that? Probably not. But,
right.
we did it, so, it is what it is. But that's cool that, you started that and everything. And, but wasn't as I started that, but it's cool that you've been around cannabis for so long, so you have a lot of experience with it. Of course, the knowledge comes with it as well. And I'm glad that more science has come out on it, because when we were younger, I know you're older because I didn't graduate till 2006. Especially when we were both of us, younger, whatever. There was so much misinformation on cannabis, and still is today. But I used to think that hydroponic was you literally submerge the plant in water.
Yeah. No, that's seaweed.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I was like, what? 'Cause that's how someone had explained it to me at elementary, middle school, or whatever.
Yeah, that's how fish get high.
Yeah, I know, right? And then, back then, it made no sense. I was like, how would it survive? What? And so you get older, and you realize, oh, okay, that's not. Yeah. It's not fully submerged. It's just the roots. So, but yeah, man, thank you for joining me today and everything again. But that's cool that you're born and raised in Carlsbad and everything. How come you never left? What kept you in Carlsbad?
I guess maybe just family, probably mostly. I got a lot of family here, my kids and my parents and everybody. I've been I moved around a little bit, but I've always kept my home here.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the military for a bit. Lived in Hawaii. We even moved back then, so I totally get it, brother. Sometimes the family thing is a more important aspect of being close than anything else. So I totally get that. That's cool, man. You decided to open up one up in your hometown. How has that been? Operating in your hometown too. I don't operate in my hometown, so that's why I'm more curious than anything.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's been great. It's nice to be able to have a storefront and just kind of be out in the open.
Hmm.
And a lot of people that I've been dealing with for many years. They're able to come in and stuff. My In 2011, I became a caregiver through the medical program.
Hmm.
So I had like 3 or 4 patients at a time, and I was doing a couple grows for some of them. But yeah, I still got some of those patients coming into the store today.
Nice, man. So you've been a part of the program since almost its inception. 2011 is when things kind of started taking off a little bit more for it. Like it was signed in 2007, going in 2008, but it didn't really start kind of being established until like 2010. I'm finding out because I didn't get in the program to 2013. So it's cool to hear
Okay.
you're a caregiver. How was that being a caregiver back in the day, especially the original medical days?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it because, I mean, honestly, it kind of, gave me, I guess, cover, or you know what I mean? I was
Mhm.
able to be able to help out some patients without worrying about getting in trouble or anything. If I remember correctly, I feel like it was like I'd have like 6 ounces per patient. So
Mhm.
I remember like thinking I could have a pound on me because I had like 3 or 4 patients at one time, and so I was able to operate that way under the program.
Nice, man. And I never really met too many people that did it that way. Most of the caregivers I knew were for kids, like it was like their
Mm,
parents and stuff like that. So it's
right.
rare that I get to talk to somebody that actually used the caregiver, program essentially in that way. So it's a cool historic thing to kind of share, because New Mexico, we went in an interesting route when it came to medical. We were one of the most like restrictive states in the nation, but we at least had something like that kind of helped out because Carlsbad being where it is still kind of rural, and there really wasn't much choice for patients back then. Like living in Alamogordo, even I only had 2 options: Rios and Cruces. So I mean, the patients needed more access back then. And I remember when I showed up around 2013, that was one of the problem areas was southeastern and eastern New Mexico. Is there was the lack of dispensaries and product. And I actually remember, I don't remember the exact dispensaries, but they had pulled product from eastern New Mexico during the balloon fiesta. I don't know if you remember that at some of the dispensaries. So there was a
Oh,
shortage.
wow.
Yeah, during I think this was like in 2016 or 17 or something like that. But yeah, they would do that whenever there was a huge event in Albuquerque. They would pull stuff from the stores around the state and take it up there because we just didn't have enough cannabis for everybody. So
That
Wow.
would be for
Yeah.
all the medical visitors.
yeah, medical. Well, back then you had to be a New Mexico resident and your New Mexico card. It was way more strict. It's not like these days where we accept everybody with a medical card from like
Oh,
every
no, there's
state.
no reciprocity.
Yeah, there was no reciprocity till 2018, 2019. Yeah, we didn't get that for a while.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, so would you? I guess this is a question for people who are in a state that doesn't have adult use yet. Would you recommend other people with the medical program to become a caregiver?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, if it gives you, if you're able to grow, you can get your grow chops up. It's just more access. I think that's what it's all about is either more access for yourself as a patient or for other people that you could help out.
Definitely, man. And I appreciate that because some people don't even know what a caregiver is or that's even a thing. So if you're in a state and you're just medical, maybe check that out if you're wanting to help people. Every state does theirs differently. So keep that in mind. The way that it operated in New Mexico or Colorado, California, whatever state you're in, it's going to be different. So keep that in mind. Some states are more liberal, some a little more restrictive. You're conservative about it. It's just really depends. So make sure you guys check that out on your own. But that's cool. I appreciate that. So now let's get into a little bit further into it. You've been around since the medical days. That's always good to hear. I love, meeting, OG medical people, especially the ones that have been around even before me, because you guys have a lot of information and it's historical. And sometimes I don't think some patients realize that what we went through and what we're doing now is a very historical thing. And in the future, they're going to want to
I
hear
agree.
some of these stories. Oh, what's up?
I agree.
Heck yeah, 100%. So we legalized cannabis 2021. What really made you want to join the industry and become an operator?
Got you. Yeah. Well, during the medical days back in like the I don't know what you call them, the 2010s,
Yeah.
I got a little bit, I use the word disenfranchised, or I guess because I guess I always had wanted to have like an operation or grow like a dispensary or something.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember, like it was pretty much there's a limited amount of licenses. You had to be like a millionaire pretty much to like buy a license or set up. And so I didn't really have a way in. And I also just kind of saw like the dispensaries that I did go to. I was never happy with the product. Really, I felt like it was all kind of subpar and expensive. So I just kind of I did other things. I went back to school when I was like almost 30. I went back to college there in Cruces and just worked other jobs and stuff. Oh yeah, and
oh, lasso! Oh, don't give me the lasso, Larry.
But
ahead,
yeah,
sorry.
so no, a friend of mine here in Carlsbad, he had a gummy edible manufacturing, and I got on with him. I was helping him, and then he opened a dispensary, and I helped with that, and I was working there for a while, and we ended up having a falling out, and I got an opportunity to open this here. Our location, there is an old dispensary here, and they're pretty much getting out and they're selling. So I was able to kind of come in and just take over the dispensary that was already built out here.
Nice, man. So more of the opportunity arose naturally, through the thick of it, essentially. That's cool,
Yeah.
man. And how long have you guys been open or around?
About 2.5 years now.
About 2.5 now. Well, congratulations. I mean, it's you joined when things were just getting crazier. when you came into the market, like things were just getting crazier. They weren't like, and like I told everybody, it's about a 5-year thing to where a market starts to become stabilized. That was like what, year 2, like getting into the industry. So it was definitely a rough time. So I'm glad you guys are still around. I'm sure you learned a lot. From what so with that being said, what are some things that you can share with other people that are, looking to open up a retail or something, that you learned from yourself?
Sure. I felt like it was kind of an advantage that I didn't start till I did. Right when we opened, like a couple months later, a dispensary closed down the street, and then another one of my buddies, a different dispensary, they closed down. And so it seemed like it was really good timing for me and for us. But a lot of the lessons I've learned have been mainly about just like the business side of things, really. Because I guess my background is more just cannabis, and now I'm really having to learn taxes and payroll and the more the marketing, and especially how weird cannabis marketing can be. So I guess that'd be my takeaway is to definitely to learn that side of things for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point, because operating in a traditional market sense is a different kind of business than actually running like a state sanctioned business that has the taxes and everything else attached to it and other regulations. So yeah, it is a big learning curve. I like to tell people, you either figure it out or you don't. It's a 50-50 thing. You either figure it out or you don't, and you figure something else out. So it seems like you guys are on the right path to things, and still on the ups and stuff. And I have seen some of the content and everything. And I think I saw one was a rap song, right?
Yeah. That's actually that was my son. He put that together in like a day. Because we had an event on Sunday, just like a customer appreciation event, and he put all that together in like less than 24 hours for us.
That's funny. I like that. I was listening. I was like, all right. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So you guys should check it out, their Instagram and stuff. We'll get you guys that a little bit later in the interview and everything, their handle and all that. I just want to kind of dig in a little bit deeper because it's always fun to see how people have gone about this, because New Mexico gave us such leeway to do things differently. Like I've seen people kind of try to copy Colorado or California to the T. And I'm like, you don't have to do that here. You can kind of do it a different way or your own way if you want. And I'm glad that, you guys it seems like you guys are taking that same approach. You're kind of doing it your own way, not necessarily saying that you haven't taken things from other places, but it seems like you guys are kind of doing it your own way. The rap thing, just that in general, I haven't seen anybody do that yet. And if I haven't, send it to me, because that's great. But, I haven't seen anybody do that yet. So I was like, that's original, regardless if someone thinks that's a good song or not good song, whatever. But, I haven't seen anybody turn a rap song into an ad like that on Instagram or for cannabis, so that was actually refreshing to see something different. So that's pretty cool to see. What are some other things you guys are doing to help with, marketing? Because like you said, and we all know, it's challenging in the cannabis industry.
Definitely. Yeah. It's honestly something that I'm just starting to get into here in the last few months. We kind of made it this far just from word of mouth, and mainly just focusing on getting cannabis products in the store and providing access. But I guess that's another thing I've been learning, is how much marketing and I guess how much that affects things. There's a lot of competition here in Carlsbad. There's a lot of dispensaries popping up all the time, and I'm just kind of starting to figure that out, really.
Yeah.
We're just having fun with it and, trying to be authentic and, so it's just starting. That whole process is just starting for us.
Yeah. And like, if it happens naturally, it happens naturally, but the marketing helps. One day I hope it changes to where it's not as, strict, because I kind of feel sometimes it's a little unfair the way that they, kind of treated cannabis, in a sense. So, it's cool that, you guys are, figuring it out your own way. And I can already tell that, it's at least caused some, innovativeness from, the industry, because you have to figure it out, either you don't, you just go straight word of mouth, or you try to do something clever and get away with it. And I love it when people are clever. So at least some innovation is coming from this, strictness when it comes to the advertising and stuff like that. So
that's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And your guys' packaging and stuff, do you guys do like your own packaging as well?
Yeah, well, so far I've been doing all like the design, and we just order we've been trying to find a good supplier of packaging. We started with one place and we found a place that was cheaper, and we're just trying to nail that down.
Yeah, that's packaging is a big thing, and it does add cost to the product. So, definitely you want to get the best bang for your buck. We do packaging as well, or especially our own, and so we have to do that as well. It's like, all right, where can we find the cheapest jars? Where can we find the best deal on the sticker backing and stuff like that, or the sticker paper themselves. So stuff like that, little things. So definitely get it, man. I do like the design. The roly poly thing was kind of cool. I haven't seen anybody do that. Where'd you come up with the name of that?
Well, the roly poly, I mean, so the brand name of Rollies we got from sometimes like some of the old school people would come in and they asking for a pre-roll. They say, hey, you got any Rollies? Or I want to get a Rollie. Yeah. And so that's kind of where we picked that up from. And then the roly poly just came from that. It's because it's a small, we wanted something a little quick. It's like I said, a 0.5 gram. And so it just made sense. We say it's tiny but mighty, just a little roly poly.
Definitely, man. So that's cool, and it stands out. Like I like the creativeness that you guys are going on. Like I said before, you got to do that in this industry. And so now, where did the name from your dispensary come from? The Tree Amigos thing.
Tree Amigos. I mean, it's what it was. It was just a play on words. Just pretty much brainstorming, ideas like we wanted to have a whole theme, a brand. Yeah. And that kind of represents what we are. We're just like the weed guys, we're friends, and we're about the trees, about the cannabis.
Definitely, man. And you could tell, so how has the customers taken to the name and the cleverness of it?
They like it. I think,
Yeah.
we get a lot of compliments on it. People bring it up and stuff. So we're having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, yeah, and there's all kinds of marketing, potential with that, especially with that name and the play of words and everything. So that's cool, man. I like to ask people where their name comes from because a lot of times there's sometimes a simple meaning and sometimes it's a very deep, deep meaning where you're just like, I didn't even think of it that way. But
Right. Yeah.
you never know until you ask. So and everyone has the ability to come up with something clever. You don't have to just be the grass level or the grass stop,
Green.
or
Yeah.
Wheaties. Yeah, even though that is kind of clever, I will say. But you don't have to do that. You can do something else totally different that it still sticks out. One thing I did like to tell people is especially stay away from the word cannabis and marijuana inside of your name for the business, because not just because you run into like legal issues sometimes people just charge you more when you have the word cannabis or they find out you're associated with cannabis. So it's like, oh, that sucks that we can't use that, but at the same time it causes some really cool names and some interesting businesses. So another thing on that. That's dope, man. So what kind of products do you guys really focus on carrying, like the whole shebang, or is there something that you're kind of particularly specializing in?
Gotcha. Yeah. No. So before, we opened here, I guess I was always more focused on just providing like top shelf, like the best I could find, and I learned working in the industry that a lot, I guess, people like cheap stuff. And so I guess you could say we're on both ends of the spectrum because we always got to make sure that we stock the low priced, high THC stuff because that just kind of keeps, it is what it is. Like that keeps our doors open. But we're also, we probably consider ourselves connoisseurs or whatever. So we like to find the best stuff, the cleanest stuff, I mean, yeah, we sell a lot more of like cheaper wax, cheaper flower, outdoor greenhouse and stuff. But then we definitely have our customers that come in looking for the $50 eighths or the grams of rosin for, $60 and up.
Yeah. And like a lot of people have learned that too, especially my friends who, are also connoisseurs, and, they love quality. I love quality myself, but I recognize too that we're the minority. The majority of the people don't really give a shit, and they just want something to smoke or whatever, consume. And, the education has been, I wouldn't say lacking. It has been lacking, but the education, we've learned a lot. And getting the new information out to the people has been a pain in the ass. And so getting the correct information out's been hard too. And getting people to accept the new facts has been hard too. Especially, you said it yourself, the cheaper, higher THC stuff, we're really pushing the THC isn't really a factor in quality, other than that number being high as shit. And so, we're kind of battling that now. It's like, we're sorry we did that, but, we learned something else, like it's really not the case. And so One day maybe that will change. But when you look at it, when I was growing up and you wanted to play beer pong, you'd go get a cheap $15, $20, 30 pack of, Bud Light and went that route. You weren't really getting the craft stuff to play. If you were, you're a rich kid.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always the natural ice or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and these companies win awards all the time as best beer in America and stuff. So, I mean, it goes off of the popularity contest at that point when there's several different other products that are more than likely significantly better than it. It's just those connoisseurs are in the minority. So, it's cool that you guys cater that way at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like the maturity of the market, like they say, right? A lot of people maybe are just starting or been smoking for a few years or whatever, and they might not know, I never saw a THC percentage test for 20 years, and I was able to find what I liked and so people might not have those skills. So they kind of have to rely on numbers or whatever, packaging, what looks pretty.
Yeah, definitely. And with the push of, education on terpenes and, like tropicanic sulfurs and stuff like that too, and the other volatile sulfurs, and the other compounds within a cannabis plant. We can really get people of the spectrum on it, but it's so slow, and it's frustrating sometimes, but it is moving. It's finally moving, and I have seen more people be like, well, I don't want the high THC stuff. I want something that either tastes good or just, it has something else. And some people really like CBN. Like I've been really pushing that for people. It's like, hey, dude, if you want to try to help sleep, try CBN, and it helps with other stuff, and the other compounds too. And, there was a time where I was really pushing like a total, cannabinoid number where everything is like incorporated in the number so they know, but you still need the breakdown of what is what versus the whole number too. So I think one day we'll get there till we'll have like some way to tell the quality in a number, but right now, yeah, we kind of have to rely on the THC or the tests, or like hopefully they paid for the terpene test, because that's not automatic. Some places do it automatically, which I think is cool and that's great, but it's not always an automatic thing. Sometimes you have to pay extra for it, and I understand if some people can't afford that, but right. I really do hope that one day that changes, and we'll see. I think it won't change until we get some like changes on the federal level. What do you think?
Yeah. I think, we try to be about education, and we are successful sometimes. Like we kind of graduate people up, try some rosin, we'll get some discount or something at a good price for them. And then next thing you know, now they only smoke rosin instead of the BHO or whatever, or just get them on the more expensive cannabis. But, I also see a lot of, it's almost like people don't want to be told, like they know they want the high THC, and it's almost like you're like, I don't want to argue with them. You know what I mean? They want to pay for that. So we just, we let people choose what they want. But I think little by little, just the more people, they might get tired of that and try something new, and then figure out, I think everyone's got to figure out what works best for them, of course, and everyone's on their own timeline with that.
Yeah, of course, and maybe some people just want that high THC, and don't get me wrong, there's a place and time and place for everything, for everything. But, maybe that's just the way they want to roll, and that's fine. Yeah. And it's cool that you guys are still educating and stuff like that, because some places it's a get in, get out, we don't care. At least you're trying. You have the customers that they don't care, they just want in and out, but you're at least trying to educate them and everything. And who knows, maybe the 10th time they come in your attempt to educate them, they actually sit there and listen. But you never know unless you try. Like they say, you miss every single shot you don't take. So you got to take that shot, and who knows, not that shot, Jim.
Different shot.
So, well, that's cool, man. And it sounds like you guys got a pretty neat little operation going on out there, and I guess I shouldn't call it little. I've never been to your store, so I have no clue what it really looks like. I hope to visit more Eastern New Mexico shops, one day. It's just, it takes a while to get out there. And I'm sure vice versa for coming out this way. I know you wanted to come for this episode, but things happen, and we at least were able to get you on here. But I understand the struggle for sure, man. It's hard the state is very spread out, and so it's really hard to get certain places. What's your plans for the business? Are you guys looking to expand to other cities, maybe go full vertical? What's the plan for the future for you guys?
Yeah, sky's the limit, but I think vertical is probably be the first place we would go. I really like the way Green Fuego and Carvers. I just think those are really cool. They got their store and their grow and their processing, extraction, and all that. So I could see us getting into that. Our first step, was just like the infused pre-rolls, but we would like to eventually get a cold room, do the hash extraction and a grow. That'd be great. And then if we could, find another place to put up another store, that'd be awesome.
Nice, man. So there's plans for the future, and it's great, that you guys are thinking ahead, but you're not trying to grow too quickly. Because, I've noticed when people try to expand too fast, they have issues. Like here in Las Cruces, a perfect example was Soul. They were the first consumption lounge, I think, in the state. And they had plans of opening up like 2 more locations in the city, and they were moving fast, but the money didn't stay the same, and so things dropped off pretty quickly for them. So I'm glad that you guys are taking your time, and you're kind of just reading the market and reading yourselves. Whenever you're ready. Not let's jump on it right now and figure it out as we go, because that doesn't always work. So
yeah, no, we definitely don't want to get overextended. And I mean, I'm trying to really nail down what we got before we go and try anything else crazy. And the right opportunity will probably come at the right time, just like how this entire store came across. I mean, maybe we find a grow or something that someone wants to get rid of, and we're there for it. So
definitely, man. And if I hear something, I'll let you know. If it's right, it's right. If not, then somewhere down the road. So,
please do, yeah.
Definitely, man. Well, where can people find you guys? In Carlsbad and online as well.
Yeah, so we're downtown in Carlsbad. It's 221 South Canyon. We're like right off of Green Street, which is the Hobbs Highway, and Canyon Street across from the Wells Fargo here. Online, we don't have the hugest presence, but we are on Instagram, Tree Amigos NM.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tree Amigos NM. That's us on Instagram. And our website's treeamigoscannabis.com. We just barely started put our menu online through Dutchie. So that's a new feature we're trying to push out.
Nice. Any plans for a drive-through?
So in Carlsbad, they did like a city order. Whenever they did the city stuff, they said no drive-throughs.
Yeah, like we're like one of the few cities that allow them here in Cruces, and I tend to forget that sometimes. Same thing with I think lounges for a bit were like a big issue for a lot of places. I think Albuquerque wasn't allowing them, but now they do, thank God. But yeah, I forgot that you guys are one of the ones that didn't allow that. So, well, maybe in the future though they can change that, because it's a huge help for patients. Especially the ones that can't get out their vehicle. I know people always tout ADA compliant, but that doesn't always mean that person is able to use that, correctly. Some people are so disabled that even that isn't, helpful. It's easier for them to stay in the vehicle. So hopefully it changes.
Yeah, that'd be a huge help for a lot of people. I've seen people have to get their wheelchair out of the back of their truck and to try to shuffle in, and people coming in their canes and.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of nonsense. I mean, it is nonsense that we can't just have a drive-through.
Yeah, it is. And we've had no issues, with the drive-throughs here in town, and like they've asked the police before, any issues from them. We're like, oh yeah, nothing. I totally forgot they were around. They're just so normal now that like you just, there's a drive-through, hell yeah, like it's one of those things. So well, that's cool, man, and thank you so much for sharing about the business, your background and everything. I look forward to seeing you guys' growth, what you guys got going on. Do you have any events or anything planned for the future to let the people know?
No, I mean, we always do our anniversary every year. We're able to get our whole city block and kind of block it off and get like food trucks and DJs and all that. And we just did that last Sunday, but I definitely want to start doing more events. I think it's a lot of fun. And we did, like on Sunday, we did a raffle where one of our customers won 20% off for a lifetime. And that was pretty cool. We're pretty stoked about that. So yeah. So, yeah, no, we're gonna do some more events for sure, but nothing right now to push.
Nice, man. Well, I want to make sure to ask that just in case, like, dang it, we're a little bit of a week short on the one that just happened. So hopefully it was a good event and everything. Congratulations. I didn't know your anniversary was just a couple of days ago. So congrats on that.
Oh no, sorry. Well, thank you. But our anniversary is in March, and then we just did a customer appreciation. That was a little confusing the way I said it, but
got it, my bad.
Yeah, no, every year we'll do the anniversary, and then we're going to try to do more on top of that too.
Okay. Well, congrats, late congrats, I guess, since it passed back in March, but hey, you're still here. So that's something to celebrate.
Appreciate it, man.
Heck yeah, man. Well, we're going to continue on with another conversation and everything. Is there anything else you want to say before we move on?
No, I don't think so. Just, thanks for having me on. Appreciate that. I really enjoy watching your podcast and just following you on Instagram with all the updates, just like nationwide and probably worldwide, really. But, you're always on top of that. So that's cool, man. I appreciate you doing that. And it's nice to have you here in the state.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, and appreciate the support. Without the support, I wouldn't be able to do something like this and, get the information out. So it's people like you that, make it possible. So I appreciate it. And I really appreciate you joining me on the show today. It's another thing that the show wouldn't be anything about. Would be without is the guests that we bring onto the show. So I appreciate it, man, and
For sure.
nothing but luck, man. I wish I hope I get to go out into eastern New Mexico sometime, hopefully within the year, to go check out some of the shops, and I have some other people I want to go say hi. I really want to make it down to Jaw. It's an interesting little area I wanted to check out too, on top of the rest of eastern New Mexico. So thank you so much, and guys, check them out if you're over in Carlsbad, if you're going through the area. We all know the Texans love eastern New Mexico, so if you guys are driving through, check them out. I know a lot of Texans listen to this podcast, so if you guys are in the area, go ahead and check them out. It sounds like a really cool area, and check out them roly polies.
And we love our Texans too, so
of course, man. They're a big reason why certain things are happening in the state. Like a big chunk of our sales go to Texans. So, we're here to support them. So they're supporting us. But we're going to move on to the next topic of today. We're going to be talking about the DEA hearing. Now, usually I give you guys a rundown of what was said, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But today, as I'm recording right now, so tomorrow the episode is going to go out everywhere else, so right now they're having the last day of the hearing. So then it's pretty much going to be up to them what they want to do. But today is actually the states, and not all 50 states. There was just a handful of states that were going to be a part of this hearing. I believe it was Idaho, Nebraska, pretty much every state that doesn't have some kind of legal cannabis, medical or whatever, is a part of it. Louisiana, however, was going to be a part of this, and they're the opponents of the cannabis thing. So Louisiana was pretty much going against their current medical program that they have by saying cannabis doesn't belong in Schedule 3. So they actually dropped out a couple of days ago. I guess they came to their senses and realized that they actually have a medical cannabis program. So that's at least good to hear that they came to their senses on it. And I believe there's one other state that's a part of it. Indiana. Indiana is the other state that's a part of it too.
A lot of Midwestern states.
Yeah, it's the Midwestern states. And if you didn't notice, he's stream audio only. Oh, there we go. You're back.
Right, he's back.
taking a drink. Sorry.
Oh no, you're good, man. I was like, oh no, he disappeared. So the states, if you didn't notice, all of them have no medical cannabis program whatsoever, like medical, and they don't have an adult use program either. And Idaho has been known to try to pass legislation where they will never legalize cannabis, even if the federal laws change. And so these states that are the opponents on this, like when I saw who it was, I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah, but Idaho's got potato vodka, so they're fine there.
I guess, man. They like their alcohol, but yeah, I don't know what's being said or what their what their themes are going to be or whatever. I'm pretty sure it's going to be anti-cannabis stuff. They're going to say, oh, it's going to make things worse and addiction this and blah 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 that. All the regular stuff. I'm sure they're going to say.
So they're having these meetings on whether or not to take all of cannabis to Schedule 3. You're just trying to figure out what's going on, the lay of the land, as it were.
Yeah.
And so they pick the few states that don't have any medical program at all to go ahead and talk about it, instead of the majority of the states that have a medical program and
adult use
and adult use in some cases, or even just the ones that have medical program. You got people from Texas go over there and say, yeah, we have a medical program because this. And
there's, be it a very weird medical program, and it's not as cool.
Texas.
It's done the Texas way. But let alone it is a medical program. These other states don't.
Yeah.
As you guys know, or if you guys don't, FDA approved cannabis and state medical cannabis is already Schedule 3. This hearing is to see if all of cannabis should be Schedule 3. So keep that in mind. That's what this hearing is happening for. Just an update for those who didn't know, forgot, whatever. I know it's been a week and we all been high since then. But that's exactly Gino. That's exactly what's going on with that. I'm curious what the states are going to say, but I'm more curious of what's going to happen with their decision, the federal government. To me, and I shared this opinion last week, and I'll share it again, I kind of feel they're going to keep a Schedule 1, the rest of cannabis. To me, it makes sense because they already separated the plant by definition with hemp. And then they went into this medical cannabis thing. And so I'm like, they're probably going to, do that. But I have a feeling this could lead us to decriminalization land. On Twitter the other day, I forget one of the cannabis, big news media people, one of their reporters had put out that I think in August or September, Trump may sign an executive order. Again, executive orders are nothing but a suggestion, to create a decriminalization commission. If that happens, that seems like they're going to kind of lean to having this 3-4 different kind of industry thing that I've been warning everybody about for the longest time, which it makes no sense. Like we should put everything together and then kind of figure out, okay, how do we want to handle this? Low THC shouldn't be called hemp, because real hemp does not look like low THC cannabis, especially when it grows. Real hemp, when you look at it, it's usually for textiles. So it's stringy, long, tall. It doesn't really have much of anything on it, just mostly leaves, and they chop it down and use it for the fiber and stuff. That's usually the hemp that we have known for the many, many years. The recent definition has only been around since like 2018. So that's one thing we have to keep in mind too. So we don't want to separate it further and further, because it's already confusing as is. You have it at this arbitrary THC level that they're using and nothing else. If it's under 0.3% THC, then it's hemp, which it just makes no sense. And I get it, hemp was low THC to start out with, but that doesn't mean that everything low THC is hemp, So what are your thoughts so far on this, Darren, when it comes to, what the federal government might do after this hearing?
I mean, I'm skeptical, of course. I wish that they would either decriminalize it or reschedule all cannabis, deschedule it, or at least reschedule it. That's probably the 280E is probably like the biggest threat or hurdle that I face. That tax bill hits hard every year. That federal tax bill. So not being able to write off 280E, is not being able to write off my payroll or my rent and all that stuff. So I don't know. I guess I don't expect them to do that for us, but man, that'd be beautiful.
yeah, and it would. Nice. But to me, all the signals are pointing towards them keeping it where it's at, and this hearing is more procedural than it was, anything changing it. And who knows, they could take years or another year or two to come out with a decision, because there's no timeline on this, and they're pretty much in charge of this whole thing. So, but we'll see what happens. This whole process started in the last administration, like halfway through, and we're getting close to halfway through this administration, and we're about this far. We're about 4 years in this whole process, Gino? Something probably close to 4 years.
Wait, was season 4? So yeah, about 4 years.
Yeah, almost about 4 years now. So yeah, season 1 is when this really happened of the show and everything. So, but yeah, we're about almost 4 years into this, and I think I heard somebody say it'd probably be 5 years or more before this process is completed. And to be honest, it seems like it's on track for that. What people are hoping versus what happens, they're probably going to be two different things. And to be honest, what's unfortunate is every time I bring up 280E to politicians, especially in the state, they don't know what it is. They've never heard of it before. They have no clue that we pay that in the first place. So when I do say, hey, we should fix the taxes, and they're like, oh, well, we don't want to lose the taxes. I'm like, well, we're losing like a lot more to taxes than you guys realize because of 280E. And they go, what's that? And I have to explain it. And to me, I don't even think they still grasp what I'm saying, because they're still getting their money. So, we'll see what happens there, man, because it's rough.
They just look at that bottom line and it's like, oh, we get this much?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part, of dealing with the government is, like most of them are lawyers, so it doesn't mean that they're experts in every industry. They're just experts when it comes to law, and so that's their downside, is they only know law, they don't know practicality. Like if I create this law, what's gonna happen to it? It's like, well, this and this happens to it, and then this happens, and then this gray hole opens, and like all because you wanted to change something that actually wasn't an issue in the first place. And that's one thing that I hate, is when they take an issue like the packaging stuff we're dealing with right now here in New Mexico. They're going after something that is a non-issue whatsoever. Like no one really asked for this and wanted it, but for some reason here it is in our lap, and they're telling us that we're bad kids, and so it doesn't make any sense. And to me, it's just more of the stigma that comes with cannabis, and it's still there, alive and well, and that's unfortunate. But let's hope the DEA ends some of the stigma. But from what I've been seeing in the hearings and stuff, the people that they invited, man, that stigma is alive and well. Most of the comments have been, from the opponents, of course, have been negative. Of course, we had the 1 week where, one of their witnesses was supposed to be against cannabis, but admitted that, it does qualify for Schedule 3, even though their personal opinion is that it should be Schedule 1. So we had stuff like that. But I kind of feel that the DEA is probably going to keep it Schedule 1. And who knows, we might not hear about this for a couple of years, after this. So who knows? I hope it's quick with their decision, but when it comes to them historically, they kind of take their time. But who knows? The political landscape right now is fucking weird. So,
That's true. That's true.
You got anything else to say on that, man, or any kind of comments or questions?
No, I mean, I just, when I everything I see online and stuff, it's confusing, and you don't know what's going to happen next. So I'm just kind of, I guess, waiting around to hopefully hear some good news. But like I said, I'm not expecting. I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, me neither. And whenever I see like an update, oh, they could do this, I'm like, I'm not even going to give that any time of day, because this is all speculation. We had all the news media outlets, and I felt like I was one of the only people that actually got it right. What they were going to actually do when they did reschedule cannabis is they rescheduled medical marijuana or medical cannabis, not all of cannabis. And I told people, I'm like, where are you guys getting this? They're going to end all 280 when they reschedule. They're going to separate it by definition. If you look at the executive order that Trump put out, they called it medical marijuana and specifically said they want to reschedule medical marijuana. They didn't say all of, or just the word marijuana or just cannabis. So to me, that's kind of like the signaling of where they're going. But this whole deschedule thing, this could be setting it up for that, because this is one little thing in a whole system of gears that makes it work and that goes through. So there's other ways, and hopefully we can get a deschedule hearing or something, or some kind of change on that.
It's a bigger step than you've had in the last 20 years. So
it is, but there's sometimes the step you take is an old rickety one, and it could break and you fall through. Is it really a step forward, or is it a step straight down? And so that's my worry, is we're taking a step forward, but we may fall.
So you saying I'm fat? Is that what you're saying, Chad?
No, it's just old stairs.
Okay.
But anyway, man, if you guys don't have anything else on that topic, I'm gonna move on. I just want to give everybody an update and let you know that more than likely they're going to come back with the Schedule 1. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and cool, we'll go from there. But the tides don't really signal going to staying out of Schedule 1 for adult use stuff. Again, FDA approved medical state medical cannabis, already Schedule 3. So keep that in mind, guys. And there's more information that's coming from that and down from things. I actually was on a call with the VA last week from El Paso, and I asked the question of what's going on with medical cannabis in the VA, and they actually ignored my question. They told me they were going to answer it, but they actually never answered my question and ignored it. And that shit always annoys me, because when it comes to the VA, they refuse to answer my questions when it comes to cannabis, and that shit pisses me off, and I hate it.
So what do you think about this whole medical cannabis thing? It's like, hey, did you see the World Cup game last night?
Hey, we're gonna increase benefits this year, or something. They're used to the old dudes and their old complaints. So I'll try again. We'll see. But tides are changing, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, some decriminalization in the future, because the Schedule 3 stuff is just too confusing when it comes to all of cannabis, especially the way that things have been set up. Like with the dispensaries and the state models and stuff. So we're going to move on. We're going to talk about our last one. And this one also has to deal with some continual movement. So this is about Mexico. So Mexico, a few years ago, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it on this show, their Supreme Court had ruled that cannabis being illegal the way it is actually against their constitution. And so they gave them a timeline to, figure out, an industry, a market kind of thing. The best they could do is a license for personal consumption. That's pretty much what they got. And so I didn't hear anything for a long time, and I was kind of like, okay, and kind of left it alone. But what happened was there was an individual of 9 people that put in one application, right, for, you know, their personal consumption. Well, the government in Mexico, and I guess the entity is called the COFEPRIS, and I don't really remember from the article had the whole thing, but it was a translated article, and I don't think it was translated correctly, but it's COFEPRIS is the abbreviation of it, and it's just, you know, kind of like our DEA, FDA, you know, just a little bit longer. And what they are is, you know, they're like a health authority, and you have to submit to them an application if you want to personally consume and use cannabis and grow cannabis for yourself. So in New Mexico, I can grow up to, you know, 6 plants if I live alone, 12, you know, if someone lives with me, and I can possess as much as I want at home. There's no license for that. I don't have to ask any permission. I just have to be 21. In Mexico, if you want to grow and, you know, process it into hash or edibles and stuff and smoke at home and enjoy the freedoms of it, you actually have to apply for this permit right here. The reason why they did that is because there's been no movement from Mexico's Congress on creating laws in their government. So this is pretty much where they're at, is you have to create this whole weird system of, you know, because in New Mexico, remember the personal production licenses? It's pretty much that, but for everything. And, you know, like to me, it doesn't make sense. I didn't like the personal production license back then. And now when it comes to this, I'm like, well, how is that freedom? Like, I'm paying for freedom. Freedom should be freedom. You know,
Right.
the cost was getting here.
Sorry, I had to laugh at that statement.
I know, right? Freedom is never free. There's always some kind of cost involved with, you know, with it, be it monetarily, time, or something.
Yes.
So these people, they got denied by them because, you know, they made up some stuff. You know how government works. So they sued them, and this was, I think, like 3 years ago. So finally the Mexican Supreme Court came down and said, actually, we're going to side with the 9 people. They did everything that is required by them, because I think one of the things they said is that, you know, not everybody qualified that was in that license. So it only went to like one entity or something like that, or something. They're claiming something weird, but their Supreme Court came down and said, no, all 9 did it correctly, even though it was on one application. You know, they all can grow cannabis, smoke it, whatever, you know, and do whatever that's within their freedom of this. So that's actually good. However, stuff like this could actually affect New Mexico. Another big chunk of our sales comes from Mexico, especially from the Chihuahua area, you know, because we do border Mexico here in New Mexico. We're close to Juarez, which has like 2 million people. And these people do come over the border naturally every day for school, work, you know, and we do commute back and forth between U.S. and Mexico. A bunch of us in the United States go down there for the dentist. Yeah, I know a bunch of you do. Yeah, and the eye doctor. A lot of people go down there for the eye doctor, and I know a lot of women who got BBLs down there as well. So
We're not going to mention that one.
yeah, that one's a little touchy topic, you know. But we go back and forth, you know, both ways. And the Mexicans, they come down here, do what they got to do, buy their cannabis, go home, and, you know, whatever. So when something like this happens and people figure it out, it's going to affect New Mexico. And I tell people this, and I warn them, because we're on a ticking time bomb right now when it comes to like the money we're getting from Texas and Mexico. Once Texas legalizes it or changes something significantly, wiping out a lot of businesses, you know, in the area. If we haven't figured something out since then. Especially same thing with Mexico, the Sunland Park area, you know, that's going to get kind of affected a little bit, you know, if that happens or something changes. And so something like this is a precursor to what is going to happen in the future. Them winning this ruling is now going to open it up to more people applying for this and going that route. And then that will lead to law changes and finally them getting some kind of market going, because their government's going to see this and be like, okay, no, this is ridiculous. We're going to have to set up some kind of market, just like Canada, United States, or wherever else. I kind of hope they don't go the German route. It being as interesting as it is, that doesn't really seem to work as well as people thought. But, you know, they could. I don't know. So with this information with you guys, you know, what do you think, Darren? You know, like, what's your thoughts on this whole situation with them?
Right. Well, I wasn't even really aware of all that. You know, I don't think I ever heard even about what happened years ago. This is all new to me.
Yeah.
And I can see what you're saying, though, how that could affect us here in the New Mexico market. You know, I'm very aware of how much we depend on Texas, how much we how much business we get from there. So that is concerning. I mean, it's concerning for the market, but I mean, it's also like it's good for them. You know what I mean? It's good for people in Mexico that they're going to actually be able to get the freedom to use cannabis and grow it and all that. But as far as our businesses over here, that could definitely have a huge impact. And like you said, it's going to lead to the next thing. And I mean, that's going to happen, I think, everywhere, so like you called it a ticking time bomb. I mean, it's just now is how it is. And we can just take advantage of what we can do right now. And just kind of, whatever happens, just keep adapting and working with them.
Definitely, man. And I'm glad that you noticed that, because some people I've talked to, they have it in their mind that this is going to be the way it is forever. I was like, no, that's impossible. Like we're all pushing for legalization nationwide. What that means is, we're going to shift from just having dispensaries in every state growing their own to key states being key producers of cannabis throughout the nation, because not every state is great at growing cannabis or has, the great environment. Like Oregon, it grows amazingly there, has a lot of water. However, they deal with a lot of mildew, mold, and a lot of issues in that sense. New Mexico, we're opposite. We don't have a lot of water, but we also don't have a lot of humidity. So those issues aren't as much here. They do happen, don't get me wrong. You can fuck it up and get anything. But it's not as predominant here as it is in other places. In Oregon and places like that, I hear growers just say like, oh, that's just the way it is. They just do that here. And I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks. So there's going to be just key people in the nation. We're going to have interstate commerce at some point. And then cannabis is going to be sold at your Walmart, your gas stations, same places you see alcohol. You're going to see cannabis eventually. It's not going to happen in the next year, believe me. But eventually in the future, down the road, that is the way it's going to be. And the precursor to that is hemp, or hemp. If you look at those products, you find them in Circle K right now. You find them at sporting events. You find them in other venues and stuff like that. So that is what is up for cannabis in the future. So if we don't know how to shift to that, we lost. So it's great that you figure that out. It's a breath of fresh air, really, to hear people actually say, we're going to have to adapt, and it's good for them, but we got a business to run too, and good luck to us, because I think everybody should have cannabis in their area, and I want to visit other countries and other states to visit their cannabis markets. I love doing that. I don't know if you do that too, if you like doing that.
Yeah. That's amazing.
It is, right? You go to another state and they have like legal or something, or they have reciprocity even. It's like, let's try it, so it'd be great to go to like Mexico City. You'd be like, let's go to a consumption lounge here, or something like that. That would be fun, because they would do it their own way, the Mexican way. And, I think that would be interesting.
I did want to say on the subject of the that change and things are going to happen.
Yeah.
I think if everybody is just thinking about and realizes that eventually that change will come, they have to think about the stuff that's happening in the future. Yeah. But when opportunities like that kind of go away, there are other opportunities that come up again. I think we talked about that if it were by some miracle to go to actually go ahead and go completely legal. Then I think you said that there are several states that have these laws that are set and ready to go for
trigger
interstate commerce.
Even Texas has a trigger law.
Yeah, that has for interstate commerce. Mm-hmm. Which would be a great opportunity. Yeah, great opportunity for our growers. Mm-hmm. Our distributors, all the people that are in those ancillary parts right there. Will it kind of suck for a lot of the dispensaries that might be right there? Yeah, it's going to get them hard there. But if you're prepared and ready to go, then that leaves marketing yourself, because if it goes legal, marketing might open up a little bit more. You can market yourself in Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, hey, come back over here. We got some of the stuff. Some of your favorites are still here.
Yeah,
and other things like that. So I think it's kind of like when one door closes, another opportunity will open up for you.
Yeah.
But you've got to be ready to take advantage of those opportunities when it comes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's say you're in eastern New Mexico, right? over in
kind of like someone we know.
Yeah. Let's say you're in Portales, right? You got Eastern New Mexico University there. Things change, right? Your dispensary goes, however, you actually make a deal with the college to allow cannabis beverages to be sold that you make. That's a way to shift. That's one way to do it, is see the opportunity you have. It's like, okay, this closed, but this door opened and it's fucking huge, you know, like, whoa. So like, I kind of feel that, yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit, but I feel in the end, it's going to be a bigger benefit depending on how we do this and how it goes, of course.
Can you imagine people in, we won't say Idaho because they suck. If we could say people that are in Illinois, you know, our friends Miggy and Cannabisation Legalization Network, that all of a sudden they're getting New Mexico roly-polies.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and stuff like that. They're going to get like that, or they're getting your rosin. Yeah. Or those opportunities are going to be there for some of those manufacturers, for some of those people that are creators like that, and then everybody can understand, hey, that New Mexico place does good shit.
You know, that's a great point, you know, because, yeah, the door could have closed, but then it opened up nationally.
Big time.
Nationally, it opened up. Yeah, like, okay, maybe locally you're not going to do as well, but nationally you're going to fucking kill it, you know, because
if it goes legal and you can ship online.
Yeah. You know, like maybe some places, you know, maybe my rosin company will end up just being you buy it online and I'll ship it to your door. I don't know. You know, I don't know what that future holds, but it's a possibility with the shift.
Though the potentiality of the whole thing is there.
Oh, I like that you use the title.
You like that? Yeah. Every once in a while I like to go there. And it's amazing you mentioned, Portales and Eastern New Mexico, because I was just thinking to myself, the first person that's going to jump on that bandwagon for an official university drink, you know it's going to be an MSU.
Oh, New Mexico State is going to be all. They already have what, the 1888.
They have the tequila. They have the whiskey. They have the water.
They had whiskey and tequila.
They had a whiskey, yeah.
Oh wow!
You don't know about the tequila?
I didn't.
I heard it's really good. They came out when they have the margarita drinker.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, in New Mexico, and they're all about drinking. You know, it's in the fight song. You know, like, you know,
it's the name of the horse. Did you ever realize that?
No, I didn't actually.
What's the name of the horse?
I don't know. What is the name of the horse?
I'm gonna wait for Darren's look on this. The name of the horse is Keystone, right? He knows. He knows. Nice. He went to NMSU in the late '90s.
Yeah.
That boy knows Keystone Light.
I do too. Yeah, I remember. I was in the Army. Yeah, we liked cheap beer when I was in the Army for sure.
It's in the fight song.
Yeah, it's in the fight song. So you know, I do think that New Mexico State will be probably, if not one of the first in the state, the first in the state to take on a deal like that. When things change.
They might get an ag program, a growing program. It's an ag school.
Yeah, you're right. And to be honest, a lot of those ag guys, one of them, he actually ran Rio Grande Analytics for a while. Yeah. So they're already kind of like in it already. So yeah, that makes sense. So, but anyway,
opportunities.
Right. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have. Do you guys have anything else on this topic? You know, with Mexico stuff or anything else we're talking about?
No, I think just, adapt or die, right?
100%, man. You know, either you adapt or you don't. Like I said, either you figure it out or you don't. So that's one thing. Those of you out there that are, thinking that the things are going to be the same for the longest time, or they're going to be that way forever, don't ever think that way. You're already behind if you do. So look at the precursors of what's going to happen here in New Mexico. It could be right, it could be wrong, but I'd rather be prepared than trying to figure it out when things change. So just keep it in mind, and that's one reason why I try to remind people that this success with Texas, it's a temporary thing, and I'm glad that you've realized that too, and you're like, oh yeah, I mean, we got other shit we can do, and you're already working on that now. So that's something great, and I wish you nothing but luck for that. I wish Mexico nothing but luck. Hope good luck to you guys. They're in it for a long fight, because that's a good start, but I can see them expanding in the future with that. And good luck to us when it comes to the DEA's final ruling. Today, I'm sure they're done by now. So we'll hear in the coming days, weeks, or years. So we'll see. But that's everything I have for this week, everybody. Thank you guys for joining me. I'll be back again next week for another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. All right, y'all. Shoots.
Thanks, y'all.
So,
yeah, the MiFi powered off for some reason.
Okay,
I thought it was that we were getting a warning here.
Oh, we're gonna have an edit. We're almost done anyway.
We're almost done.
Yeah,
we're gonna have an edit. Okay, we're back. We should get that reconnection here.
There we go. Hey, man, sorry about that. We're going to have an edit. Yeah, Gino's crying over here. He's having a bad day.